Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. I'm actually on vacation this week, but I didn't want to leave you without a satchat, and I'll actually be back tomorrow, so I'll catch up with you guys tomorrow morning when I get back. So here is my satchat. What would I say? My vacation satchat, I guess? I don't know. So I'm actually filming this 2 weeks in advance. You probably recognize my outfit from 2 satchats ago, but I had this idea for a video and I thought this would be perfect actually to chat about because as I've mentioned in previous satchats that my daughter and I set up a booth in a vendor boutique type place, kind of like an antique mall, but it's got some antiques, it got some vintage stuff, it's got some arts, it's got some crafts, it's got some just different, there's some plants, all sorts of eclectic goodness. And I was putting out my cards because I've been making cards for a long time. When I started my blog, it was mostly card making, and that was back in 2008 or 2009, and I had been submitting cards to magazines since 2008 and getting published in magazines and stuff from with different cards that I made. So I've been making cards all the way along, and usually when I make cards I make a few at a time. So back then I used to make I would make a couple. I would make like one to use, one to send off to a magazine, or I might make one to use, a couple to keep, or maybe sell at craft fairs and stuff, and one to send off to a magazine. Or sometimes I'd be sending to different magazines, so I'd make a bunch of them. So I'd always been doing the batched card thing. And so if I went through my inventory, I have some cards that are several years old because, you know, they've just been not selling or whatever. They've just stayed in the ranks somehow, or maybe I was late packaging them up or whatnot. So while I was organizing them and making sure I had prices on everything, and putting new tags in for things that I didn't have a new tag, like for getting paid at this the vendor fair, you have to have a vendor number. And I've been in other antique malls before where I had a different vendor number, so I just had to go through and make sure my numbers were all correct. And I was looking at some cards, and some cards I was actually thinking about just pulling and not putting up for sale. Not that they were bad or like damaged or anything, but just for the fact that some looked really dated. And I don't know if they would look really dated to somebody who wasn't a card maker, but like I look at some of the papers and some of the stamps, some of the color combinations, I'm like, oh, that looks really dated. And then there were some stamps I had used that I'd probably used because I was working on a design team, or I was doing a video for a stamp store or something like that, so it wasn't necessarily my style, but it looked very dated because that trend has come and gone. And there was some stuff that I bought, I think because they were trendy, I was seeing it everywhere and I thought I liked it, that I'm like, I really don't even like that. Why did I buy that? Why did I make a card with that? I can't believe I liked that. But it was really like just being influenced by what I'd seen online. So what I want this video, this is kind of a topic that every once in a while I come up with a topic and I'm like, oh, I think that would be a kind of a nice little chatty video to do. And so this is, I'm calling it the case for not following craft trends. So as I've been making cards throughout the years, and the last, I've had to use a lot of current product, and that's part of it. If you work as a designer, you have to use the products that your clients ask you to use, because you are generally getting paid a flat fee to basically make samples for them to use in their catalogs, their magazine ads, sometimes in booths at stamp shows or trade shows. So your goal for that artwork isn't necessarily to express yourself, it's more to showcase a product. And it's fun work, it's work that I enjoy. I love trying out, it's kind of like trying on a different costume when you work with products that you don't typically use or you wouldn't pick for yourself, or stamps that aren't really your cup of tea. It's kind of like trying on a different personality for the day. And for that, the type of work, I like it. It's fine. But when I'm making my own cards for enjoyment, so I haven't done sponsor videos for the past year and a half. I just decided I was very stressed out, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to see if I can make a living between YouTube ads and my own classes and not do sponsor content, just because I was just really feeling burnt out. And I'm like, I don't know how long I can do this. I was considering not being a creator anymore and being like a professional organizer, or trying to be a professional organizer or something. I was just like completely just like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I do not feel any pleasure in this anymore. And but I decided I'm going to stop doing the sponsor videos and basically find out what I like, because I was just so bogged down with all the things I had to do and had to use that I didn't even know what I liked anymore. I don't even know if I like making cards. I don't know if I like doing crafts. I don't know if I like painting, I don't know what I like anymore. And so I just got rid of any of the financial incentive to do any particular projects and just started doing what I want to do. And the good news is my channel's done a little better, just doing what I feel passionate about doing. So that's been really good. And if I have done freelance work for any companies, it's been companies that I would use their products whether they paid me or not. So I definitely am happier. I'm less burnt out, and I suffer from like episodes of anxiety and depression much less, because I feel like my work is in harmony with myself and my being, and I don't have that constant cognitive dissonance that I had before. But anyway, I was looking through these cards, and I was going, wow, that's really dated. I can't believe I used that. Oh, I don't like that at all. And I was really just kind of like, oh, this is because these products I used because they were trendy and not because they were something I liked. When I go through my stamp binders, so I collect two things in this world. I collect watercolor palettes, and I collect unique rubber stamps. So those are my two big collections. I like these collections because I enjoy having them and I enjoy using them, and I do use them. I don't have any like stamp that's so valuable that I won't ink it up. I have some that are kind of valuable because they're not in print anymore, and they're like personal stamp exchange, and they're older and stuff, but I don't care. I use them. I'm not going to, because really they're only worth what somebody would pay for them, and why would you buy a stamp if you're not going to use it? So I use them. But when I go through my collection periodically to see if I want to keep everything that's in there, and I pull things to give away, I end up pulling things that I didn't purchase. The things that I have purchased, that I've thought about, that I've considered, that I've hunted down at stamp shows, those are the things that stay. When I go to make a card, I'm often using products that are 5, 10, 15 years old, because that's the best sentiment. My favorite sentiment stamp is sitting in my card over there. I can actually grab it right now. It's discontinued, but I don't care because I'll still use it. It's the Occasions Alphabet by Stampin' Up. I paid $30 for this set, and I absolutely adore it. And I have a little frame that's from Rubber Stampede, I think, that's the perfect size for these, and it's my favorite sentiment set. But I have other sentiment sets, and most of them are discontinued that I use. Not great for when you're doing a tutorial on YouTube if other people want to make the exact same thing as you, but I like it, and I like it because I think that it will encourage you to be like, okay, I like that technique, I like that idea, I like that layout, and then go into your stamp stash and get what you have. Maybe you don't have any sentiment stamps, but you can go to your computer and you could print off a congratulations or a happy birthday or whatever in a font that's similar, or print it on a cardstock that's a color that you want. So I feel like it gives you a little bit more flexibility. And the thing is, when you only buy things that you like that are your style, you will keep them much longer. You will use them much longer. You will enjoy them much longer, rather than feeling like, if I don't buy this now because these stamps are going to go out of business, well, not out of business, but they're going to retire them in a month and I won't be able to get them. The reason they're going to get rid of them in a month is because they're trends and they are going to go away and they're going to look dated in another year. So unless you absolutely love a particular stamp set, I would just let that trend pass. Let that trend pass. It's kind of frantic, but if you have established like a body of cards and you start going back and looking at some of those older ones, how do you feel about them? Do you feel like, oh yay, I loved making this. This was awesome. I love that stamp. I think I'm gonna go get that stamp out and use it again. Then that's great. If you start looking at those older projects and you're like, oh man, I can't believe I bought that. I paid so much for it. And if you feel shame over the products that you bought, that you used in that card, then I think it's time to really think about what you like. And it is hard. It's so hard to figure out what you like right now, because there is so much content out there influencing you to try this trend, try that trend, try this product, try that product. But I've got to tell you, I've been stamping for 15 years, probably longer, well, more like 20, and everything comes back around again. They might change a font, they might tweak a font a little bit, but if you buy something because you like it, not because it's trendy, it's going to be timeless, and you're going to be able to use it over and over again. I've discovered my style by not doing freelance projects. I discovered that my style is, and it's a style I had before I began working, by submitting stuff to magazines. And I don't call it working very loosely, because a lot of the work that's done in this industry is just unpaid labor by women, quite frankly. But before I started working, air quotes, because that's what I feel about that particular work that I did. I mean, and no, I don't want to say that because there were some really great companies I worked for, companies I designed stamps for, companies that paid. I worked for some really good ones, but there's a lot of companies out there that have no problems, no qualms whatsoever, taking advantage of people willing to work for free or work for stamps. And I personally have a problem with that. But people want to do it. Companies want to take advantage of it. That's their prerogative. You know, I'm not going to change anything. If both parties feel it's fair, then it's none of my business. But anyway, that's just how I feel about it. But anyway, the type of cards I made before I started like paying attention to what rubber stamps were available, I used what I had. I saved cute tags from clothing. I would use stencils. I remember I made these thank you cards after we got married to send out to the guests that came to our wedding. And it was really pretty. I mean, now it probably look kind of lame, but I took tissue paper and I used a glue stick and I glue sticked it onto just a folded piece of cardstock. And then I had these leaf stencils. They weren't anything fancy. I think they were like Stencil Mania or something from like, you probably could buy them at any craft store or even Walmart. And I stenciled with gold and silver and bronze and copper acrylic paint. And like just stenciling over the tissue paper was so pretty. I think I might have put like a little like a gold thread around it or something like that. And it was just, I thought it was the most beautiful card. It was so elegant and so cute. And then I remember taking like little flat backed marbles and like gluing them over we cut out like bits of a magazine, like prints in a magazine, and glue the little glass marbles over and cut them out and stick them on a card. And it was just kind of funky and cute, and just using scraps of ribbon and twine and collaging things from magazines. I would cut up paintings I wasn't happy with, watercolors wasn't happy with, and collage with those on the front of a card. And that's how I made my cards. And I might stamp a sentiment. I had some alphabet stamps, so I would usually just stamp out the sentiment with my alphabet stamps, and I thought that was so funky and fun, and I loved the look of it. And that's the kind of stuff I like now. Again, I still like rubber stamps. I guess I wasn't heavy into rubber stamping until the kids came along and I was scrapbooking with them and stuff. But yeah, I've noticed I've gone right back to that collage type of aesthetic. And I'm not saying you should make all your cards should be collage cards. Absolutely not. You will have a different aesthetic. Everybody's a little bit different. Everyone's going to like different things. Your style might be, maybe you are someone who loves the like adult coloring book and that kind of zen. And I mean, I love to color intricate stamp designs sometimes, you know, it's fun. I'll like stamp out a bunch of things. I'll take them upstairs, put a movie on, and I'll just do some like marker coloring. If that's something you like to do, maybe you find some coloring sheets that are, and size them down to fit on a card front, and that's, you know, your basic card. Especially for like kids' birthdays and stuff, you can find ones that are in the theme and the characters that they like. Maybe your style of card making is to take fabric scraps and use some and do some like paper applique, or even use paper scraps and do it kind of like you would a quilt on the front of a card. Maybe you like to do hand stitching. Maybe you like to do cross stitch or diamond painting or any of those things. I find that card making is the most harmonious with our identity and ourselves when we can mix our other hobbies into it. I think because I always painted, I did watercolors from age 7 on, getting watercolor cards and just painting a simple painting or painting a little flower or something like that. I found that to be very satisfying. Even if I added a little bit, like maybe took a text stamp and stamped a little text in the background, did a little collaging or a little stenciling on top of the watercolor just to give it a little bit of texture and pattern. Things like that, stuff like that, that really allows you to draw from within and put your own personal style and your soul onto that mini work of art, because that's what a card is. It's a mini work of art. And if you're constantly trying to keep up with the trends and constantly trying to copy step by step, word for word, somebody else's card, which, I mean, I can understand. There's definitely something to be said for buy this stamp, buy this paper, buy this ink, buy this cardstock, put it together, and you're going to have this exact same card as she has. And I can understand the satisfaction in that. That can cost you $80, easy. You know, if you got stamps and dies and pattern paper and coloring medias, and I mean, it can add up really quick. Like, I'm talking $80 before you get into any markers or paints or anything like that. But and if that's what you want to do, then that's fine. I'm not saying there's no wrong way for you to approach your art, but if you're feeling any sort of negative feelings about your hobby, if you're feeling shame for what you've bought, if you're feeling cognitive dissonance that like, I made this card, I got praise for it, but it's not me and I don't really like it. And I think that's where we get into trouble. We create something and people start saying, oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. You should sell that. These are so pretty. Oh my gosh, they're way prettier than anything I could buy. I love it. And on one hand, yeah, you feel good that, okay, I made something, I'm getting praise for it. But if it's not you, if it's like trying on somebody else's clothes and then you get all this praise for looking like this other person when you're like, wait a minute, this isn't me, this isn't how I look, this isn't how I am, then you can start to feel like all of this praise is superficial rather than it being truly your expression, you expressing yourself on your card or painting or whatever it is that you're creating. But you have to start, I think you have to start probably from a standpoint of copying, and then once you kind of get those techniques and tools down, then you can take an idea, you can take a technique and you can apply it to what you want to do. I think it's totally normal for like even like watercolor tutorials for people to start off following watercolor tutorials and then be like, well, I like this person, it's nice, but I'm gonna go and do my own thing now. I have a lot of people that say, you know, I love hanging out with you, so I put your watercolor tutorials on. I'm gonna paint something totally different, but I love just like hearing the chatty thing. Sometimes I'll look up and see a technique that I haven't tried before. That's normal. That's normal to kind of to venture away from a basic do this and get this tutorial to here are some techniques. And then you take it, you go on from that. You take a step away from that original idea and then you create something that's original, kind of on the shoulders of the people that have taught you. And that's kind of how art grows. Nobody starts from scratch now. We benefit from everybody that came before us. All of us painters benefit from the classical painters, the Renaissance painters, the even the painters of the Dark Ages. Every movement builds from the movement before, from cave artists to the Dark Ages to the Renaissance to on and on and on to the Impressionists and the the Impressionists and the Expressionists and the Surrealists and then the Neoclassical painters. You know, we grow and we learn and we take little bits from every one of our teachers. And I don't think anyone's self-taught. We're all taught from, we have all these influences. None of us are self-taught. We take bits and pieces from every teacher that we've had, whether it be a teacher on YouTube, whether it be a teacher in the classroom, whether it be a teacher in a book, and we take the pieces that are valuable to us that we can use, and then we create something new from that. And I think a lot of times in the crafting world, we think we have to comply, we have to do this in a certain way or we're doing it wrong. There's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. And where in art, it's a little bit, no, you experiment and you figure out what works for you. And there's no such thing as the wrong way. There's developing new techniques. If it's the wrong way, but it gives you a result you like, then it's a new technique. And I think some more of that open-ended play should be embraced in our crafting. And I know we're all different people. We're all different crafters. Some people want to have a very predictable result. Like if you do cross stitch and you're following a pattern, or you knit and you're following a pattern, you're expecting what you create to be exactly like the thing in the book. You know, if you're following a recipe in a cookbook, you also expect that food that you're cooking to be exactly the same way as the person's in the cookbook to be. So I can understand that. Some things are designed to be, you know, you're trying to learn these techniques and you want to make sure you're going to have an outcome that is worth the time that you're going to put into it. And stuff like knitting, cross stitch, that stuff takes a long time. So obviously you want to have the outcome that you expect. But you're learning things when you're doing that. You eventually might want to design your own thing and not have to follow a recipe, not have to follow a pattern. So you need to kind of learn the rules before you go your own way. You got to learn the rules before you break them. But just don't get too comfortable in that following the rules state of being, I think. Unless you're happy there, unless you feel good there. If you feel good there, I'm not going to tell you that it's wrong. But if you're feeling shame, if you're feeling like unchallenged or bored or like you're wearing somebody else's clothes, then step out and do your own thing. Take a risk. Because the most you're going to waste is a piece of paper or an eensy bit of product. And let me tell you, most product that gets wasted is because it gets dried out on the shelf unused. If you're using it, chances are you're not wasting it. Even if you use it up, you're not wasting it. You're learning every mark that you put down, every stroke of a paintbrush, every swipe of a Copic marker. I know Copic ink, it's expensive, but it can dry out on the shelf just as easy as it can dry out if you're using it. So wouldn't you rather be using it and get the joy out of that? Try new things and see what works. I think the hard thing is if you've been getting praise for following tutorials and techniques and having these very professional looking results, and then you start going out on your own and you're not getting the praise anymore, that can feel really bad because you're like, I'm doing the thing that I want to do. I'm doing something that's true to me, but people don't like the thing that's true to me. They like the thing that looks perfect that I followed that tutorial to do. And so it can make you question yourself. It can make you wonder, well, maybe my way isn't right. Maybe my way isn't good enough. I better go back to that safe path where I'm getting praise because I know I did good over there because people told me I did good. We don't have this break from opinion like we used to have. Like when I was a kid, there was no social media. I would spend weeks just in the summertime just drawing and painting and creating, and I never got any feedback. I didn't need feedback because I was just doing what I felt like doing. And then when I had something that I was happy with, that I was done, I'd show it to my friends. I'd show it to my family. I'd show it to people. Maybe I'd put it up for sale because I was an entrepreneurial little kid and I would love to sell stuff and make some money. And it wasn't out there in the world till I was ready for it to be. And now it's like every single day we're putting something out there, whether it's ready to be put out into the world or not. I love doing the monthly challenges, the World Watercolor Month, and I hate it when I do a painting that is not as good as the one that I did the day before, because not everyone, you're not going to get better every single day. You're gonna not have enough time, or your idea's not going to work out, or you're going to just have a real stinker. Everyone's probably gonna have a real stinker, and you're gonna be like, this is your progress, do, bah, and then it's like, and you get addicted. I get addicted, of the feedback. You're getting positive comments. It feels good to get positive comments, but it does not feel good to get negative comments, and it does not feel good to absolutely have no feedback whatsoever. It's like almost worse to be ignored than to have a negative comment. That wasn't always the case. Artists in the past, creatives in the past, did not have constant feedback on their work. Even if you worked in an ad agency in like the 70s or 80s or even before that, you'd be working on your work. You wouldn't be getting feedback constantly. You would get your feedback, you'd get some sketches to a client, they'd either say yay or nay, you'd tweak it a little bit, you get approval, and then you'd go to work. And then when it's done, the client would see it again. It's not like they're seeing it when you've put like you've just put an underpainting in and they'll go, ew, that doesn't look finished, that's gross, You're not getting that feedback at that stage. If you have a boss that's looking over your shoulder, they know what the steps are, they know that it's not done yet, you're not getting that constant uninformed feedback. I'm not saying all feedback is uninformed, but you know what I mean. Now we're expected to constantly be putting out new stuff, especially if you are active in like groups on Facebook or groups on, well, I guess it would be Facebook. There's no groups on Instagram. But even like the casual crafter is posting everything that they create every day or once a week or something like that. So it's still this expectation. And the real kind of awful thing about it is like when I think back 20 years ago, I started scrapbooking and I'd go to crops, and I always looked forward to it. It was fun. I'd bring my album, maybe if I'd done a couple pages over the week, and we'd share our albums, we'd look through each other's albums, and it would be fun, and we'd be with real people having real conversations, and oh, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? Oh, that's fun. Can I try that? Oh yeah, you want to borrow this? And it was just so collaborative and fun. And now it's like you throw this work up into the world, and you get like, you might get some comments and it feels good, or you might get no comments and it feels bad, but it's such superficial comments because somebody's only looking for you. I know somebody's only looking at my work for like 2 seconds before they scroll on by. They might leave a real quick comment. I love that. It's so nice. But it's not like when you were at a crop and you were with real people and you're sharing, you're passing your albums around, you're teaching your neighbor how to do this, and they're teaching you how to do this, and it was such a community. Now we have these online communities that are more shallow and less enriching, and yet we feel compelled to constantly be putting content up, and I don't think is healthy. I don't think that's I think that makes us kind of hide behind our work and not be our true selves and do work that will be praised rather than stuff that is really us. And I guess I just want to give you permission to do the stuff that's really you. Be weird. Show it if you want to. Don't show it if you don't want to. But it's better to get less praise for your authentic self than to get tons of praise for being somebody else, I guess, is the moral of the story. It's a hard line. It's a hard line to walk because praise feels good. It does, right? It does. I totally get it. And you know, and you always want to be growing, you always want to be getting better, but when you take chances and experiment with different things, you're going to be worse before you're better. It's like when you were a kid and you had to clean your bedroom, and it would get so much worse before it would get better, right? Even today, you go to declutter a room, you know how it looks way worse about an hour after you start, and it's got to get real bad before it gets good. That's like doing a new technique or trying a new craft or trying a new type of art or a new medium. You are going to hit bottom again. You've leveled, you've hit this amount of proficiency here with, say, watercolor, and then you're going to try oils, and then you're not going to start way down here like you started with watercolor for the first time, but you're going to start down here because some of those techniques, some of those experiences and things you've learned will going to carry over to oil painting, but you've got a whole other learning curve. Of course, then you start trying alcohol markers, then you're back down here again, because I think alcohol markers have the biggest learning curve. But you know, every other type of craft and art and medium that you use does help when you try something new, because you can use some of those techniques you've learned, and some of those though that knowledge does transgress onto the new, or translate onto the new medium, but you're still going to have that learning curve. And then if you start posting those fledgling little attempts and you don't get the feedback that you did from your other work, you're going to want to jump back into the other safe lane. And artists don't belong in the safe lane. Artists belong on those dangerous windy roads on the side of the cliff, because that's where the fun is, and that's where the growth happens, and that's where we avoid burnout. Because if you keep staying in that safe lane and doing things that are not authentic to you, and you're not reaching, and you're not trying new things and growing, you are going to be burned out and unhappy. And I think that's when a lot of us kind of abandon a craft, or we get bored with it because we're not growing, we're not making those jumps up in competency constantly. So we just kind of give up and get burned out. If you're making beautiful card after beautiful card after beautiful card, but you're not trying anything new and you're not doing anything to expand your skill, you're not making those little jumps of growth, which were what really excited you when you were a beginner. You need to be a beginner in something else. You need to add something else on there to make it more challenging, so that you're always reaching and growing. Because if you're not reaching and growing, you're dying, essentially. And there's been so many studies about our brain and how we need to be always kind of reaching and having growth and trying harder things and really working out our brain, so that we keep our brain active, and it can help us avoid all sorts of problems later on in life. So art's good for you, crafts are good for you, try new things, be weird, and be you, because that's the best. Nobody else can do it, only you. And you're the best at being you than anybody else. So you might as well, right? I hope you enjoyed the supplemental Sat Chat. I will catch up with you tomorrow in the comments, so please do leave some chit chat with each other. We love to know what you're up to during the week. And until next time, happy crafting. Bye.